Headroom.
Where am I? In bed? What am I doing?
Nice of you to drop in.
Talking to myself.
You're on 3RRR. Time is 7:08. My name's Peter Luscombe, and I'm doing Max Headroom this week. And this week I'll be playing songs from and chatting to multi-instrumentalist, producer Charley Drayton. And during the week I caught up with him and we had a chat. Your grandfather was a bass player, is that right?
Yes.
And he played with Louis Jordan's Timpani 5 for a while, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Late 30s into early 40s.
And also, did he play with Billie Holiday as well?
Yes, he did. He was part of the Newport jazz recordings. Those recordings that I know about were live Newport jazz recordings. And at that time, he was, working in Lena Horne's band quite a bit as well, and Ben Webster.
Wow, that's a pretty nice pedigree to come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your father was a arranger, producer, engineer that worked on a lot of jingles. Was it in the 70s?
Still is, yeah.
Still doing it? Great.
Yeah, he started in 65.
Yeah.
And, he was an engineer at the time, and a buddy of his had approached him about stepping into the jingle business.
Yeah.
And which made Bernard, to my whereabouts, the first Black American in advertising.
And you got to, you were saying, I read in the Modern Drummer interview that you did, that you got to hang out there as a kid and just go and watch a lot of the people who you had on record at home.
That's probably the best education that I have. Those seeds of being in the rooms, and it made it difficult to go to academic school. I knew I just was waiting for the clock to ring to go back to the studio.
Yeah, exactly. And I can imagine it'd be the education that you weren't getting at school most of the time anyway. So, who were some of the people that you got to watch up close when you were in the studio?
Well, it would be a good moment to mention and to dedicate some of our time together, because Chuck Rainey's on my mind big time.
Yeah.
Who we hope is healing and doing better. I've been told he had a stroke a few days ago.
Oh, really?
Yes. And, Chuck, Bernard Purdy.
Yeah.
In a interesting story sticks in my mind thinking about those guys today, because I was about 13 or 14, and I was a huge Bill Bruford fan at the time, with those solo records with Alan Holdsworth and Annette Peacock and Jeff Berlin. And one night in New York, there was a club that Mike and Randy Brecker had opened called 7th Avenue South.
Yeah.
And a few blocks across town was another club called The Bottom Line. And I started the evening with my dad, and we went to see Bill Bruford. And then Bernard Purdy was playing with his band over at 7th Avenue South. And we went from The Bottom Line to 7th Avenue South. And, of course, Chuck and was playing in Bernard's band that night, and we got there just at the beginning of the third set, and Bernard says to me, "All right, man, you're going to start the third set." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Nope, you're getting up there." And, of course, that was my first experience playing with Chuck, and that evening had elevated my whole musicality,
That's what I remember reading an interview with Jeff Porcaro, who has a very similar story about the first time he played with Chuck Rainey as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, he just said that, that just took his playing to another level, playing with somebody like that. And I can imagine, how old were you at the time?
13, I believe.
Man. Yeah.
I just felt like, I felt like he just lifted me and carried me.
Yeah.
And it was then that I kind of knew, how an effortless groove could feel. And from then on, that energy has traveled with me ever since. And what, as a song player, what the possibilities are, and the things that, and it's all about how well you listen. I have to mention another musician who's a bass player named Will Lee.
Yeah.
That at that time was one of my first, and my dad had introduced me to him on a jingle session, and of course he was the guy that played on the Brecker Brothers record.
Yeah.
and that, for me, he helped me to learn so much, through his playing and his patience.
Yeah.
And the way he listens, and he's an extraordinary musician and a human being as well.
He's another guy that started out as a drummer, wasn't he? If I remember reading an interview with him years ago.
Yeah, he does play some funky drums.
Yeah, and he's also a great singer.
Yeah, absolutely. He sings his brains off, and has a wonderful band called the Fab Four in the United States, which is dedicated to playing Beatles music.
Which explains his outfit on Letterman sometimes.
That's right. His father, Dr. Bill Lee, passed away recently, and I have to give a shout out to him because his father was a music educator at Florida University and taught, musicians like Hiram Bullock and Will and Chaco,
right,
and Will and so many others, and just was an extraordinary human being, and just have to give a shout out to him.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because his spirit is in the air.
When I chatted to you on the phone the other day, you used an expression to describe the groove as a rounded groove that you're searching for when, with playing with a new band, especially like Chiseled, when the groove starts to get a rounded form. I'd really like you to elaborate on that.
Okay. In a musical setting, say it be a first day with either a band or musicians, be it a session or live type situation, and you're about to figure out what the language will be for that music, and if it's song related, with lyrics and in the drummer's chair, you set the pulse. You want to feel where everybody's natural groove is going to be, and then for myself to shape sort of let it take a shape, or to put a certain accent or a certain hump in the groove that will be attractive and magnetic and easy for everyone to come to, and then to carry that forward to how the listener will accept that. And with the Cold Chisel experience, for a band that's been together for 30-some-odd years, and they learn and play together, and
yeah,
that's
exactly,
evident
yeah.
is how you hear those songs. So I don't kind of hear that or listen to it as kind of individual achievement. I kind of hear their growth as a whole.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And Steve's footprint is just tremendous in how he plays the songs, but as they've grown together, the singer likes a certain edge, a certain part of the groove. The guitar player, guitar players, in rock and roll, they, you take a single string riff, and naturally guitar wants to push.
Yep.
Bass wants to sit. Piano wants to move a certain way, and so, as I studied the Cold Chisel music from, the late 70s, 80s, and then the 90s, and then the 2000 period, they have those valleys and peaks that they move in, and they, for the most part, it have an upper edge to the groove, and some things, naturally, I think most of their recording is without click, and they just have a natural hump to their thing. So for me to work in the Cold Chisel groove, I had a conversation with Don about, and then with the rest of the band, about how they like certain songs or certain things to move, or would we like to keep them more in a round circle and have them be intense within the groove, as opposed to having to move things up the tempo to bring the intensity. And Don agreed he would like to focus on maybe keeping things in the groove that they move in, and feel the intensity from there.
I got to do a little thing on the hi-hat, a little special on the hi-hat a few weeks ago, and when I mentioned this to you the other day, you said you had some things to say about the hi-hat, and I'd really like to hear what you have to say. I noticed you actually, I don't know if you still do, but you and Steve Jordan both used to use very big, like 16 or 17-inch hi-hats. Is that still part of your arsenal?
Yes. You know, Steve and I had a band for a while, and you know, we were always experimental, you know, in exploring what the possibilities are and what tools will make the right sound. And, you know, I in my collection of things, you know, 14s, 15s, and eventually, for how I was playing at the time, and this was coming from spending more time in the studio and trying to create sound and texture a little bit differently to some of the music that I had been introduced to playing. And what I mean more by that is exploring the bigger cymbals. You know, there's a period in the late 80s and the 1990s. Okay, I'm going to break this down a little bit because I actually asked an important question, and I asked it to the right person. This was about a year ago. There's a guy and a friend named John DeChristopher, who is the vice president of operations at Zildjian, and his office is in Boston. And I saw him about a year and a half ago, and I said, John, by any chance, can you answer this question? I said, do you know who was the person that said make new beat hi-hats? That's what the heavy bottom.
Yeah.
You know, that's when the balance of weight began to change between the two cymbals. Yeah. And he said, yes, I know, it was Louis Belson.
Right.
And he said, Louis came to the factory and asked, I want to get a little bit more chick from the foot without attacking it with the stick. And that was how they came to develop the heavier bottom thing.
Right.
Now, Louis, who was capable of playing a serious groove with the backbeat as well, but, you know, of course, he wanted to apply that more to his jazz playing. Yeah. And, you know, but I feel once the new beat became popular, some of the younger players, you know, picked that up and took it into the rock and roll and the modern music that was being played today. And that frequency, to me, as we listen to, you know, there's a lot of good music in the 80s and 90s, but when you listen to the recording of some of that stuff, you know, that up against a lot of, like, mid-range electric guitar and some of those different sounds that we were beginning to hear at that time, you know, the heavy hi-hat thing became like a white noise thing, a frequency amongst all electric frequencies in recordings. And that really began to annoy me. I wanted to drop the pitch in what I was hearing in my playing. And there was a point in my playing which I said, I need to develop playing bigger cymbals again. And that's not only did the crashes and the rides get bigger, but, you know, then I explored the bigger hi-hat cymbal thing. And then Steve jumped on, and then, you know, and I try to encourage that in players.
Also, I think sonically, an acoustic guitar and a hi-hat tend to take up a lot of the same space when it comes to mixing a track. So if you can have a point of difference where you can easily sit each other up above or below, especially with a lot of singer-songwriter kind of folky pop that's around at the moment, I always find that the acoustic guitar is a natural enemy of the hi-hat in certain ranges. So to find something that's a little lower pitched from a hi-hat tends to make it a lot easier to sit it in there.
That's right. You know, I learned some beautiful lessons working with Paul Simon the last couple of years, and because he primarily plays acoustic guitar and finger picks. And, a lot of the drum set tones are a distraction to him.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to find a way to make it work with him. And, I would say 50% of that gig, which is a healthy thing for me, is to be playing with a brush or a non-solid drumstick tool.
Yep.
And, and there's just, there is a way to work around everything to be a musician playing drums, and it just goes as far as your imagination will take you.
There's also a track that when I was fishing around looking for things to play on this, I noticed you played on Tombstone Blues with Richie Havens. Is that right? On the Bob Dylan...
Man, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was a great day.
Well, that sounds like the kind of fun that you were having at the Tony Cohen session, like sonically anyway.
See, that's the kind of stuff I love to be invited into, because that's what makes me better. That's the only reference that I like to use the word better, because it ain't about being better. It's just about more or less about being in the moment and how well we listen. And I love organic roots music where sometimes we're just trying to generate or create a pulse. We don't have to hear a beat all the time. Beat can be distraction sometimes.
Yeah.
If you can create a sound, dress it, mute it, put your hand on it, whatever, something that creates the sound that you need to feel. Sometimes you need to feel it than to hear it, and working with someone like that, and like you expressed earlier about playing with acoustic instruments and trying to work, when the acoustic instrument needs to be the predominant instrument, let's find a way, to support that. And so, that session gave me the opportunity to do that texturally as well.
Well, it's one of those situations where you think, again, it's like you said, it's sometimes when people don't want to hear a backbeat so much, they want to hear this forward motion and just continuing pulse. And it sounds like you had a bit of a Keltner time on that as well. Moving off to that other, is there a second drum sound on that kind of comes in at different times?
There just might be, man. I'd have to hear it again, and It's been a while because I've been studying Cold Chisel every day.
Yeah. Hey, Charlie, I think we're going to have to wrap this up. Thanks again for phoning in and giving me your time. It's been great.
Hey, Pete, it's my pleasure. I hope we get a chance to do it again, and thank you for having me on board.